done, Tahu. It's too late for me.
No, it is not too late. For I am the Master of Fire!
Gathered friends, listen again to our legend of the
Bionicle is blasting the fuck off.
So I'm definitely not condoning kidnapping.
What the fuck? Bionicle is somehow one of LEGO's largest themes, however, it's also extremely difficult to get into today and barely supported by the company. Today, I'm going to explore what getting into Bionicle is like 22 years after its creation. None of my videos have had a very specific target audience, however, I am making this video for people who either grew up with Bionicle, who are curious to see what it's like for a newcomer, or people who never got into Bionicle who just have no idea where to start. Also, I just want to lay down some context real quick. Bionicle was a theme which started in 2001, then it got cancelled in 2010, it was then brought back in 2015 before being cancelled the next year.
A long time ago on the mythical island of Akoto, all lived in harmony.
Many fans who have never gotten into Bionicle might ask why they should even bother getting into this theme after the series has been gone since 2016 and arguably hasn't been great since 2009. In my opinion, Bionicle is an amazing vehicle for creativity, unlike any of LEGO's offerings today. Bionicle provides just enough substance to form a solid world, but isn't so strict that it acts as a great jumping off point to create your own characters and creatures. LEGO's modern main themes are all 18+ models focused on accuracy or licensed themes with clear lore. Obviously, both of these concepts are not inherently bad and enjoyable in their own right, but they don't serve as a very inspiring concept to create your own models. Star Wars is fun, but in my opinion, it seems to inspire consumption of more products instead of pure creativity. Bionicle is personally inspiring to me in a way that only happens once in a blue moon. The last thing I remember just inspiring me to create in a similar way was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Keep in mind, when I say this level of inspiration, I mean these franchises drive me to create my own things, disconnected from the source material.
From the island's elemental forces, two brothers, known as the Mask Makers, created masks of power.
I always assumed that Bionicle would be way too hard to get into because the story seems so convoluted and impenetrable. I didn't know what sets would be good to get or where I should even start with the story, because all I knew was it had gone on for years and had a ton of characters and locations. It's almost like Kingdom Hearts, where it just felt so massive and expansive that I didn't even want to touch it. And I think many new LEGO fans might feel that way. In reality, the plot of Bionicle is pretty straightforward, with a simple structure that just gets repeated. There's a big bad that controls the wildlife, elemental heroes stop them, and there's always some main MacGuffin for each wave. A lot of newcomers might be intimidated by all the unfamiliar words Bionicle uses. However, there are really only 4 words you need to know. Mata Nui is the Great Spirit robot and also the name of the 2001 island. Toas are the heroes or protectors. Matoran are all of the villagers. And the Makuta is the big bad of the Bionicle universe. Old school fans, don't be upset I've dumbed it down. For most newcomers, I think that this should suffice. The thing that actually got me into the Bionicle lore, and where I think many people gravitate towards, was Duck Brick's 9-hour Bionicle Retold lore video. And it certainly whetted my palate, but to be honest, I don't think it's the best place to start. The video is laid out chronologically to the Bionicle universe, not actually the way the information was presented in the real world. The con of this is that most new viewers are finding out about a bunch of lore that is really extraneous before the basics are laid down. I think a good example of why this isn't a great format is in his Ninjago Retold series. He mentions Chima, Wojira, and Serpent King Mambo V before he even says Kai or Lloyd. I'm not hating on Duck Bricks at all. I'm very glad these videos exist. I'm just saying, despite being a very thorough overview of the whole series, I do not recommend this video to a newcomer. If you don't mind being a little bit confused though, I'd start off with episode 4, Infection, as it tells the story behind the original 2001 Toa, as well as the Motunui online game, which basically served as Bionicle's real-world introduction. I've also linked a playlist in the description of some of what I consider the best Bionicle videos to get you interested. And if you want the authentic experience, I'd say the best thing to do is just play the Motunui online game. It's a free download, so go crazy.
When the stars align, 6 comets will bring timeless heroes to claim the masks of power.
When I was little, my friend had his brother's old Liwa figure with the canister, and I distinctly remember not liking it because it was unlike any of the system sets that I had. A few years passed, and I watched all of the Hero Factory movies as they were coming out. However, I never actually got any of the sets. So I was really excited when Bionicle Generation 2 was announced, but it was just because I loved Hero Factory and I had zero interest in actual Bionicles. Despite not caring about the lore at all, I got 2 Toa and I got all of the Matoran from the Generation 2 wave. Then, this year, during the last 3 weeks of senior year, my friend randomly decided to watch Duckbrick's whole 9-hour Bionicle lore video, so I watched it too. Then, this summer, I just got really into Bionicle, and I'm so glad that I did. I can assure you, I will be buying more Bionicle. Now, you might be thinking, well, since he doesn't have the full original team, maybe he's gonna finish that. Oh, you couldn't be further from the truth. Basically, I want all the really weirdo ones. I just think that they have great parts that I either want to use for stuff, or I just love their character design. Alright, so the sets I want are Krika? Visorak Kilarak, Gadunka, Nocturne, Vizok, Toaliwa, Furrow and Skirmix, and Brutaka.
Where am I? Who am I? You are Tahu, the master of fire. What are you talking about?
Despite this video being about Generation 1, I do want to touch on Generation 2 as it did have a big impact on me, and is probably why anyone who is getting into LEGO at the tail end of the 2000s cares about Bionicle. The most important thing to note about G2 is that it uses an alternate building system called CCBS. Despite being compatible with G1 parts, CCBS had a very different design language. Side note, there often appears to be a surface level fight between people who prefer G1 parts and CCBS fans. However, most mock makers seem chill and utilize both to great effect. The nice thing about CCBS parts is it's easy to make what you want out of basic pieces. It is designed to be as simple as possible to make decent looking figures with minimal parts. Despite the low barrier to entry, the system is able to provide a shocking variety in the body types and limbs you can construct. Unfortunately, CCBS has one very glaring flaw. The back of the models look really bad. Even trying to avoid this is difficult. I built my own character using CCBS, and I feel like I did a pretty good job, but even trying my hardest to avoid it, the back was still the weakest part of the model. In my opinion, the CCBS Toa are fine. I'm glad I had them growing up, as well as all the Generation 2 Matoran, but they certainly are not the greatest designs. They all suffer from having bare backs, and in my opinion, they lack a lot of personality because they all use the same armor pieces, just color swapped.
The 6 heroes had all reached their shrines. Pohatu, Kopaka, Liwa, Gali, Onua, and Tahu.
Finally, we can actually talk about the Generation 1 sets. The Toa Mata were really fun to build. People were not lying. The smallest differences go a long way. I know it's been talked about to death, but Liwa's slimmer limbs, Gali's larger hips, and Pohatu's neck really do make the building process engaging, even when building the models back to back. The posability of the models was shocking to me, and they were far easier to maneuver than I expected. The arms and legs were all very posable and stable, with each Toa having 7 to 8 points of articulation. Obviously, this isn't as many as later Bionicle models or CCBS builds, which tend to have 11 to 13 points of articulation. But as the first human characters LEGO built with ball and socket joints, I'm very much impressed at how they hold up today. The parts are fun to build with, and besides a few exceptions, I didn't feel like they were made out of single-use parts. For example, the hand pieces could also be used as shoulder pieces. Sometimes I was nervous when popping a ball and socket together or pulling them apart because the pieces felt like they were about to snap. Obviously, this is because they're old, but I think it's important to note for anyone who might want to pick them up today. I will say, after building a big combination model with all the Toa to try and get a feel for the system, I was very happy with the pieces these sets included. Afterwards though, I built all the original models again, from memory, so they aren't the deepest builds by any means. But I'd argue they don't need to be, providing just enough character to feel distinct while not being overly designed or overly juniorized. Also, this isn't a unique take at all, but it does need to be said. The masks are really great. I never got why people didn't like the G2 masks until I saw these masks in hand. These pieces, combined with the face's amazing light pumping, really do result in characters that feel biological and mechanical.
Near the heart of Akoto lay the ancient city of the mask makers. Who knew what secret dangers waited inside?
In 2023, LEGO's 90th anniversary, we got the Toa Tahu set. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the build itself, as upon its release, the build was showered with the praise it rightfully deserved. As everyone said, it really is a love letter to everything Bionicle. Unfortunately, this set had a massive flaw. This flaw was in its release, not the build. Yeah, this set was released as a gift with purchase, which I really dislike. Obviously, I find this practice very anti-consumer, especially since only certain themes counted. Said themes which did not include Technic, which is literally the dumbest shit ever. I think this would have been best released as a LEGO store and shop at home exclusive. Ironically, much like how the worst part of the set was unrelated to the build, one of the best parts also had nothing to do with the actual contents of the set. Seeing people get inspired and building full teams of Toa in the gift with purchase style was super cool. I tried my hand at building some of these with my very limited piece selection, and I was decently happy with the results. Unfortunately, this gift with purchase made me realize Bionicle really couldn't work in today's market. You know how I said it would work best as a LEGO store exclusive? Well, that's because this set would not work on store shelves. Especially not a whole theme in this style. LEGO's current focus as a company is very unwelcoming to Bionicle. Ninjago has the evergreen IP on lockdown, and based on how poorly Generation 2 flopped not even a decade ago, No matter how much fan support the theme has, LEGO isn't coming back to Bionicle in a serious way anytime soon. LEGO's seeming dislike of exclusive set molds, focus on big 18+ sets and license themes, and desire to base everything around the system brick means I honestly don't see Bionicle coming back unless LEGO sales somehow plummet, rise again, and for whatever reason they feel like they should start experimenting. Honestly, I never expect to see this theme on store shelves again, and I'd consider it dead and buried, right alongside Galador, Power Miners, Chima, and similar themes.
I am Ikimu, the mask maker. Now you must hurry and find my resting place.
So what is Bionicle like in 2023? It's still really good. I'm gonna sound like a cornball, but Bionicle still makes me want to dump out all my Legos on the ground and just build the craziest things that come to mind. Sure, Lego might not be supporting it anymore, but who needs a Lego? The fans are doing some of the craziest stuff I've seen. Not only have they assembled great resources for finding information about Bionicle, they're also remaking one of the games, making their own game. There's annual, canon contests held. There's actually one going on right now as I'm making this video. I voted for this guy, by the way. As well as people 3D printing their own parts. Bionicle fans, you are truly keeping the series alive and making it possible for people like me to get into it now. I'm honestly super excited for some of the new Bionicle stuff coming out, just from the fans. Now you might be saying, even if it has a really good fan base, why should I get into it? Well, in my opinion, if you already own CCBS sets like I do, it's a no-brainer. It's a really good addition to it, and you'll really be able to make some cool stuff, as well as it just being a fun new system to play around with that's pretty familiar. Now, if you don't have any CCBS parts or even a large collection of Technic parts, I think that's a little bit harder of a sell. I'd love to just blanket statement recommend it, but honestly, I think that if you only have system sets, you'll have to spend quite a bit of money to stockpile up enough Bionicle parts to make it feel like it's actually supplementary to your system sets and not just like those 3 weird sets you have on your shelf. And to the Bionicle fans who've been here through the Krana, Metra Nui, the Paraka, and even Bionicle Stars, genuinely, thank you for making this franchise so fun to get into, even so many years after it got canceled. Also, it's fucking wild to me that Bionicle is in the Lego movie for 1 frame.
Hey, listen, do you think you can explain to me why I'm dressed like this, and what this big work this guy wrote about, and where we are in time?
Your home, Brickster, is one of many realms in the universe. There's also this one, Pirates Cove, Knights, Vikings Landing, Mountain Town, a bunch of others we don't need to mention.
This is the aftermath of one video. We got Bionicles on the floor. Legos up there. We got this whole desk is just a mess with all these Bionicles. That's where I do my editing. We even got stuff I was using up here. This is covered with cans and my larger models. Legos on the floor. Bionicle boxes on the floor. And then I've still got my photograph area set up because I know I'm going to probably need to take a few more. And I've even got shit over there. This is the aftermath of just one video. And for reference, I like to keep this space just entirely clean.